Hey guys, Jimmy Vegas here, and let's code some AI together. Now, AI, in its simplest terms, artificial intelligence, is something which is always thought of as being a little bit difficult to do, a little bit complex. However, it's not as hard as what you think. It's actually very easy, depending on whether or not you use something like Navmesh, which is what we're going to do in this tutorial, as well as some C# coding. So I have the scene here. It's quite a nice scene, to be honest, from the asset store. And I have a character here from Mixamo. Basically, if we press play, she's just walking on the spot. Nothing fancy at all. Animation attached, walking, no problem, whatever, it's all good. So let's actually give her a place to walk. Now, in order to get all this working, as I've said, we need to use something called Navmesh. And Navmesh is classed as AI. So in order to get this working, we need to go to Window, we need to go to AI, and we need to click on Navigation. Now, when you have it, you'll probably see something a little bit like this. By default, you'll be on the Object setting here. To apply it to our scene, you need to select whatever is your ground. In this case, it is this terrain right here. So I'm going to select my terrain. Here we can see that we have the navigation static. That basically means that it's never really going to change, although it may change. At this stage, it's not going to. It's always going to be there. The ground's always going to be constant. So in this case, we have it static. And we also need to make sure that the navigation area is walkable. What that means is that any selection around here, we can walk on. Another thing that this will do eventually is realize where the player can and cannot walk. So it's important to kind of recognize that. And that can be done via the beg setting right here. You can see the agent radius and agent height. By default, this might be 2, it might be 4, it might be 0. I'm going to have it set as 1 for now. Agent radius is the radius of, well, this little person over here. For now, all we really need to do is just click on bake. And down the bottom, you'll see the little bar telling you that it's all doing what it needs to do. Just give it a couple of moments and you'll see everything turn blue. There we go. What this means is that this is now determined where the player can and cannot walk. A good example is here by the tree. This blue section is where the character can walk, and non-shaded areas are where it cannot walk. It will navigate around these sections right here. Very handy. So yes, we've applied the area where the player can and can't walk. However, we need to declare what the character actually is, because it's no good just on its own. We need to tell it what the agent is. It's known as an agent, I should add. So let's go to the character and let's click back on inspector. And when we do, you'll notice all the blue shading disappears. Don't worry, that's normal. That happens. It'll only appear when we're on the navigation menu. So back in the inspector, let's now add component. And we're going to add a couple of components here to make things universal. The first component we're going to want to add is in the physics and box collider. Now, if like me, the box collider is huge, you just need to reset it to kind of mimic roughly where the actual object is, in this case, our character right here. You could use different types of colliders. I use box collider because in its simplest terms, it kind of saves a little bit on memory rather than having something like a mesh collider. So I'm going to reduce the size, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. Looks like it needs to go down a little bit more, 0.05, 0.05, and this needs to be a little bit bigger, so let's have that as 0.15. We just need to increase the value here, the center. So that's roughly about right. It looks like it should be okay. Maybe a little bit lower. Obviously, it's down to you how refined you want it to be, but that should do. Next thing we need to add is a rigid body. Again, that is in the physics menu. So rigid body. Not going to change anything else on there. By default, it's pretty decent. The next one we need to add is a nav mesh agent. And you know what? Let's search for it because why not? It's Unity. So in the search box, in the component setting, let's go nav. Oh, there it is right at the very top. Nav mesh agent. Let's click it. And we obviously need to change the size of the obstacle avoidance ring or collider as it is, because we can see these green lines here are quite large. They surround our character extensively. That's too much. So let's reduce the radius to 0.05. Still a bit much. 0.03 looks about right. And let's reduce the height to 0.2. Still too much. 0.16. That should do it. So there we go. So that now has everything set up as we need it to be. So this agent will react to this Navmesh when we apply a C# script to tell it that this is what it needs to recognize. So let's do that now. Let's right click, create C# script, and we'll call this character agent. And let's open that up in Visual Studio. Now we will need to add a namespace to this because Navmesh is classed as AI. So we need to add in using Unity engine.ai. This now allows the script to recognize that it can use AI components such as Navmesh. Now there's two variables that we'll need to add here, but I'm going to get rid of the annotations because we don't need them. We do need start and update methods though. So the first variable is going to be public because we want to be able to drag and drop that into the section on the inspector panel. So we need it to be public. It's going to be a game object, and let's just call it, in fact, we'll call it character destination rather than player destination. So destination, semicolon. And the next one, I'm not going to have this as public because we're going to declare it in the start method just below, but it's going to be the type Navmesh agent, and we'll just call it the agent. So what we're saying here is that this particular variable is going to relate to whatever object that it's already attached to, meaning the script. So in void start, let's say the agent is equal to the component that it's attached to. So remember, it's going to be attached to our character, and the Navmesh agent is that actual component. So we need to say the agent equals get component, and a good old spiky brackets, less than, more than, you know what they mean. We have Navmesh agent. Open close brackets, you got your parentheses to close that up with a semicolon. Next, in the void update, we need to say we need to go to this destination. So what you need to do is walk this way. Mind the pun. So the agent equals, in fact, not equals. Why do we need equals? We need to tell it the destination. So the agent dot set destination, and in brackets we need to tell it where that destination actually is, and we've declared that as a variable earlier on. We said character destination. So that character destination is going to be, for example, in this particular case, a cube, because we can use that cube as a trigger area. So character destination dot transform dot position, semicolon, and save. So what we're doing here is we are saying that the agent, in this case, which is going to be the character, needs to get to the destination that we declare as the variable character destination. So basically it goes to the position wherever that character destination is. So if we head back into Unity now, allow the script to compile. There we go. And we now need to attach that script to our character. So drag and drop onto there. Next thing, let's set our destination. And it's going to be, for now, let's just say here, I guess. So let's go to game object, 3D object, cube, and let's set it to a place somewhere around here. So let's say 285 and 215. So there's the destination. I'm going to make it a little bit larger than what it is to give ourselves a larger trigger area for the second part of this tutorial. Let's go to scale and let's have 3 by 3 by 3. And I'm going to increase the scale probably to about there. So let's have the Y setting as 1.5. This will become important, like I say, in the second part of this tutorial. Last thing we're going to do is untick Mesh Renderer, and then finally add that cube as the destination right here. So drag and drop onto the variable selection there. In fact, let's rename this cube so we don't get ourselves confused. So character destination. And now let's press play and let's observe the character walking towards that destination. Cool. So let's head to scene view so we can get a bit of a bird's eye view. Now the character will stop, it will glitch like that. This is where the second part comes in. Let's say that our character has reached this particular destination. We now want them to move somewhere else. And let's make that somewhere else a random position, because why not? We can do that. We can code that. So let's stop that and let's head quickly to the actual Navmesh agent here. I'm going to slow down the speed. So it looked like it was sliding ever so slightly with my animation there. So I'm going to slow the speed down on the Navmesh agent just a fraction. So 3.3. Right. Let's now make it random so the character infinitely walks around randomly. That's some more AI. So let's go to the character destination and tick is trigger. That's important. The next thing we're going to need to do is actually declare a tag. You can see that here, this is known as untagged. That's fine. We need to leave it as untagged. Every object is untagged. What you'll need to do is set your character, or rather whatever you want, whether it's a character, NPC, it doesn't really matter, as long as you have a defined tag for that person or car or whatever it is that is the agent. So in this case, my tag is set as character. If you don't have that character there, I think by default it will say just untagged. But if you don't have that character tag there, you can always click add tag. And you can click on add and then name it there. So you could type character if you wanted to. You could tag it as, I don't know, person. You could tag it as something, anything. It doesn't really matter as long as you remember the name of that tag. So I do have mine tagged as character. So it's important to remember that. So now let's write that separate script which will allow us to continue that AI sequence and keep walking around. So let's right click, create C# script, and let's have this destination change. And let's open that up in Visual Studio. We don't need to add any extra namespace to this because there's nothing relative to it in this script. We do, however, need to get rid of the start and update methods because they are irrelevant for this code. So let's delete those. Now, I did say we were going to randomize the position, so let's declare some variables for that randomized position. So public, let's have this as just an integer to keep things at least somewhat simple. So int, let's have x pos, semicolon. Now, I am only going to do this on the X and Z position. However, you can apply it to the Y as well. It is entirely up to you. So next one is public int Z pos, semicolon. Now, we need to have a section, or I should say a method, which is for the on trigger enter. So we need to have here void on trigger enter. Now, there's a couple of things here you'll notice. It doesn't need to be private, so we can remove the word private. In the parentheses here, you'll see it says collider other. Now, this other can be changed to whatever you want it to be. So, for example, you could change that to my NPC. You could change it to this person. It doesn't really matter. By default, it does say other, but I'm going to keep it as other just to keep things consistent for now. So what we need to establish now is what is colliding with this trigger. Is it the actual character or is it something else? Remember when we set that tag? That's where it comes in useful. So we can say in an if statement, if, and in brackets, other dot tag equals, and remember that's a double equals because we are not stating, we are asking. We are saying if that tag is equal to character, so in this case it will be if our character walks into it, close bracket, open curly bracket, then we need to do the following. We need to randomize the X position. We need to randomize the Z position. We can do that real simple. X pos equals random dot range, and in brackets, the minimum and maximum number that you want to generate. So in this case, if we go to our character destination, let's say the minimum and maximums are going to be somewhere around all of this area here. So let's say we'll go from, should we say 26? Let's say 270 to keep things nice and easy. So 270. So we can say 270, comma, and let's say 100 this way. So let's say 380, semicolon. So the range will be randomized between here and all the way over here, which is fine. So the same logic can then be applied to the Z position. So Z pos equals random dot range, and in brackets, let's have a look. So let's say from somewhere here, so let's say, what is that? 215 to, let's say, I don't know, should we say 140? We'll say 140. So 140, comma, 215, close bracket, semicolon. So we've randomized that position. I'm just going to set our destination back over here. So undo a couple of times. There we go. So now we've randomized the coordinates of where we want the destination to change to. Let's now declare how we actually move it over there. And it's very simple. We can just say this dot game object, and that is a lowercase g and a uppercase O there. Don't forget that one. So we want to transform the position. So dot transform dot position, and we need to make it equals to a new vector 3. Although we're dealing just with two coordinates x and z, we still need to declare it in a 3D environment. So we need to say new vector 3, and in brackets the x, y and z coordinates. So the x coordinate is obviously going to be x pos. The y coordinate, for me at least, is going to be 1.5. So 1.5f. And remember, I said you could do this on all three. This is where you would put your y randomized position, although y may not necessarily be relative all the time, depending on the height and width of your terrain or ground. Finally, we need to have z pos, close bracket, semicolon, and save. So if you have a little bit of height to your terrain, but don't particularly want to randomize that section, what you could do is increase the scale on the y-axis for your destination. This way, it covers a larger range of the trigger. So in this case, let's set this as 10. In fact, let's set it as 20 just to be safe. So if the height of the terrain changes and it's somewhere up here, at least you've still got a section of that trigger zone exposed. So let's put this into practice now. Let's attach that destination script onto that character destination. And you can see the Z and the X coordinates there, no problem. So I'm going to save my scene, Control and S, and now I'm going to press play. And I'm going to head back to the scene view just so I can get a bird's eye view of all this in action. So if we zoom out, we can see our character walking towards the destination. And there we go. The destination has changed to all the way over there. So our character is now going to navigate all the way through these trees to this destination over here. So the simplicity of it is actually, well, simple. I'm not sure what more I can say on that. As I say, a lot of people always seem to believe that AI is a difficult concept, but in reality, I don't think it is. You have to start small and build up. Don't try and get to your end goal straight away. Just try and work on what you have slowly and build up. For example, beginning of this tutorial, we had nothing. Here we are, what, 20 minutes later, is it? And we have this character walking around our scene randomly. And it will infinitely go on like this, on and on and on. Once you've got these basic concepts of AI working, you could really advance this a lot further. And there's no telling how far you can advance your AI skills. I mean, look at this. As I've been talking, our character is just randomly walking around our scene, navigating past trees, past everything, with no problems whatsoever. The key to it all is that destination trigger. And I like that destination trigger because it gives us the opportunity to actually think about more things. What else can we do with destination triggers? Not necessarily be a destination, but if a character passes through that certain trigger, they could do something different whilst carrying on. So that's something that you can really delve into more with AI. So I've enjoyed making this tutorial, guys, because it's really given me an opportunity to display how easy AI can be to code. And if you guys want to see some more AI, please let me know. Let me know what kind of things you want to see coded using this kind of AI. I hope it's helped you out quite a bit. I hope you can use it for your game. As I say, any comments, questions, leave in the comments below. Guys, I've been Jimmy Vegas. This has been a little bit of an introduction to AI, and thank you very much for watching.